All right, it's time now to take a look at what's making headlines on the dailies on our press review. And as usual, we'll begin with a look at what's making headlines on the respective dailies. On the Standard, Mike.
Uhuru, Raila, 12-day final poll attack. We only have 12 days to the polls. And, well, the Standard is outlining the plan that Uhuru and Raila have for the next 12 days.
I mean, time moves so fast. I remember when we began our countdown, it was about 240 days.
Yes, and it seemed like it was so far away.
All right, so on the front page of the Daily Nation, terrible toll of polls, damage to Kenya's image as a stable place to invest and do business, issues of economic slowdown as companies adopt a wait-and-see attitude are the fruits of bad politics, according to this article on The Nation. But let's begin with the Standard newspaper.
All right, and Uhuru and Raila 12-day final poll attack, and it outlines basically some of the areas that the two principals are going to be concentrating their campaign and ensuring that they blitz and, well, sell their manifesto to the Kenyans. And you've got the likes of Nyeri, Muranga for Jubilee, Samburu, Bungoma. But what I like about, I think what I found different between what has happened now and previously is that we have both principals going to each other's strongholds more frequent and more often, which I think is a good thing, because they realize they do have support there as well.
Right, and of course, it's a tyranny of numbers, as has always been in Kenya's elections. So on page 8 of the paper, the headline is Candidates Eye 1.2 million undecided electors. So the rival coalitions, especially in the wake of the opinion polls that have suggested a neck-to-neck race for the presidency, their campaign teams have now, scheduled their campaigns in the next 12 days around these undecided voters, around the areas said to be, seemingly the highest number of undecided voters as well. So we'll keep looking at, keeping an eye on how this goes.
It's interesting because I was sitting with some friends and we're discussing and, looking at whether does Kenya really have undecided voters, because this was on the backdrop of the presidential debate that took place, and we are, just basically asking ourselves, are there undecided voters, and does, in the Kenyan context, a debate really sway the vote? Would somebody who was sitting thinking, should I vote for A or B, decide otherwise? But there you go, 1.2, according to this article, there's 1.2 million undecided voters.
I think after this election, we'll be able to tell what impact presidential debates have in the country, because the only reference we have now is Abdu Badida in 2013 and how that propelled him into the limelight. He won, he got 50,000 votes. So whether we'll have any of the other presidential candidates also be propelled to the forefront, then that
remains to be seen.
Right.
All right, so that's what we have on the headline. But looking also at a story on page 4, SRC approves 2.6 billion pay rise for civil servants. So that should be good news. It looks like civil servants will be smiling all the way to the bank. But the new salary to be paid this month will be based on old job grading system. So I guess they'll not be smiling to the bank this month. But come August, after the election, they can say, well, it's a new paycheck. And
it's a better time to have more money after the elections, if you ask me.
Absolutely.
Right, so on page 7 of the paper, panic as cholera kills 3 in Kisumu. 35 people have also been treated for the infection in Kisumu County. And so the situation seems to be getting out of hand. And what we kept saying with cholera is people keep traveling from one place to another. So it's very easy to take it outside Nairobi County. We've already seen this happening in Kisumu County.
All right, on page 10, going back to that presidential debate that took place, or shall we say did not take place, because really it was not much of a debate. Debate really suggests that there are 2 or 3 people, going against each other head to head. But there you go. Judge me on my track record, according to the president. And, apparently he has no regrets of not having attended the debate. He says it was a waste of time.
All right. And on page 8 of the paper, IBC to resolve adopt a polling station row. So the Electoral Commission will seek to dialogue with NASA leaders this week on the adopt a polling station row. I remember IBC says it is impractical to have 5 agents, to have NASA have 5 agents in each polling station, which is what they're seeking to have. But of course, IBC also says they understand where NASA is coming from, so they will be seeking to iron that out this week.
All right. Now, if I asked you a question, and this is based on an article on page 16, how prepared are you for the elections? What would your thoughts be? What do you think I would be asking about?
You would probably be asking about whether I have, verified my details with the IBC, whether I am sure which polling station I'm going to be voting at, perhaps?
Well, according to this article, there is that, whether you're prepared to vote, but there's also the other preparedness. If you look at the cartoon at the bottom, it says, I see you're preparing for the election.
Right.
So yes, many of us would think when you're asked whether you're prepared for the elections, it's to do with the voter's card, whether you verified which polling station are you going to be, but there's another side to it. There are those who are stocking up. There are those who are making sure that their cars are going to be full of fuel. You're making sure that you have food in your house, just in case things don't go as planned. So,
and a lot of Kenyans are preparing in this way for the election, really. And it's a little sad for us to be planning for things to be at a standstill just because of an election. And like I said, I mean, it's 12 days to go. We cannot wait for it to be over and done with.
Yeah, and get it behind us and see where we are as a country. Decision 2017, and Raila team goes easy on 6-piece voting plan. Again, this has been a plan that has been pushed by both sides of the divide, and that being Jubilee and NASA, that those voting should vote for, well, what they call the 6-piece suit. And that's basically, if you're voting for Raila as president, then you vote for anybody who comes under NASA in that regard. But of course, we do know that the independent candidates have been up in arms saying that should not be the case, especially Peter Kenneth, who we are hoping is going to be with us tomorrow, basically has been up in arms saying, no, there's nothing like 6-piece. You should vote for the leader who you think
you
will
want
deliver.
to vote for. That's right. And on page 24, Kidero defends his record as a city governor. He's very hard-pressed, of course, explaining issues of corruption, traffic, as well as cholera, among others in the county. And yesterday we had him right here on Morning Express for an exclusive one-on-one. Do grab your copy of the Standard for this article. But today, Mike, we'll also be having another gubernatorial candidate for Nairobi.
Yes, and we'll be having the one and only Miguna and find out what his plan is. I remember on the gubernatorial candidate debate that was done by KTN News, he claimed to be the only one who has a clear written manifesto that is ready. So we'll be putting that manifesto to the test. And remember, if you have any questions that you'd like to pose to him, feel free to send them through, and we'll see whether you can get them across to him on how he intends to lead this county of Nairobi.
Absolutely. So let's wind up the Standard with the hustle pullout of the paper this morning. And quite a read here, especially for those interested in getting into business. So tech tips from the startup that built East Africa's top banking app for those interested in technology. But there's an interesting article here, Michael, on page 8 of the hustle. So you want to apply for a tender. Well, here's 11 things you need to know to apply for that. So many young people have been asking, how do we become tenderpreneurs? You know, how do we get it open to just a meager 5% of the Kenyan population? So do grab a copy of the hustle pullout for that report. Absolutely.
So that's what we have on the Standard. There's much more, but we've just given some of the highlights. Let's now take a look at the Daily Nation, where we have the headline, "As Terrible Toll of Polls." And this is basically just talking about what the polls do to us economically speaking. And we start with the tourism sector. I remember I mentioned this some time ago. I was in some place where they were saying that they had 150 guests who cancelled. This was last week, and this is mainly because of the election. They said we're cancelling all our hotel bookings and the plan that they had to go to the Masai Mara simply because of the election.
And of course, with that in the hotel industry, that comes with a lot of jobs being lost, because I mean, you can't have people, you know, staying at a hotel that has no people.
Exactly.
And then issues of production as well. Companies are drastically scaling down on production because of the uncertainty over these polls. But I think the biggest beneficiaries, if you ask me, Mike, would be retailers, especially supermarkets, because people are really trying
They're
to stock
stocking up, absolutely. And you'll also find many businessmen and women will tell you that at this time and this period, for the last 6 months and until maybe a month or two after the general election, depending on how things go, things become very lull and very quiet. And this is because, well, most investors employ an attitude of wait and see.
Right.
So, of course, that's a terrible toll of the poll. So we are hoping that we can get this over and done with, and we have a smooth election, and then, you know, get back to our lives and carry on with life.
And especially with matters that matter. And among those things, Mike, is issues of health. And a lot of it highlighted on the Daily Nation this morning. So on the front page at the top there, NASA's strike strike slows down war against cholera, with hospitals swamped as a fresh outbreak has been confirmed, not just in Kisumu County, but also in Lamu County. But still on matters health, Mike, on the front page there, uproar of a new NHIF claims cap. This is a report that continues on page 10 of the paper. And the media has been highlighting the gains that NHIF has made, especially, in moving towards creating universal healthcare for Kenyans in the country. But now there seems to be a new move to cap some of the benefits they enjoy by them, enjoyed by their members. Among them is issues of, say, surgeries, major surgeries and minor surgeries. Any NHIF contributor should have or be able to benefit from these services. But now they're saying there can only be one surgery per family, per year, or 2 surgeries per family per year. So it's a lot of questions as to, how do you decide?
Yeah, absolutely. On page 3, there was a whopping 9.6 million viewers who tuned into the television contest, which the president says that, he has no regrets of not attending. And it gives the statistics right there of how people were tweeting. I remember I was actually watching and I was on Twitter at the same time, just trying to see what's happening. The memes, of course, started flying through of where the president would be. So it was pretty interesting. But 9.6 million viewers is quite a big number.
I think more people were watching the debate on Twitter as opposed to actually watching it on TV, and I was one of them. It was a lot more interesting there. Yeah, but 9.6 million, definitely very high viewership there.
All right. Now, page 6, we have Matiang'i identifying threats to election. As the acting CS for security, of course, he has a huge task and a huge job to make sure that things are in order. CS has reported, or rather reportedly held more than 50 security meetings since assuming office on July 8th. So he's been a busy man.
Right. And of course, just ahead of the elections, on page 9 of the paper, IBC is delving into civic education now. The Electoral Commission has rolled out a massive voter education drive aimed at reducing the number of spoiled votes come the 8th of August. And of course, this is very important considering the number of aspirants we have, or number of candidates rather, we have in this year's election. And so the potential for spoiled votes goes even higher.
All right, and there is an article on page 14 written by one Jainzi Kisero who says why naming of Kenya's 44th tribe should not be trivialized. Remember, the president, or rather the Asian community was named as the 44th tribe in Kenya, and basically, according to him, he says why it should not be trivialized. I remember some politicians were making very light of it, and there was also the cartoon that was saying that Jubilee now is done with launching projects. They're now launching tribes. All
right, so let's wind up with some good news on page 12 of the paper for HIV patients. HIV drugs to be given by injection. So this is a revolution in HIV that could see daily oral pills replaced with an injectable drug given only 6 times a year, meaning that patients will only get an injection after every 2 months instead of daily oral drugs. So that's pretty good.
I guess the good news there would be the frequency, but there are some who see a needle and they basically... Are you one of those?
I am one of those.
Who disturbs the nurse for an hour? You cannot...
traumatic needle experience I cannot mention on live TV.
Well, not one to laugh about, but there you go. There's some of those. For me, I just close my eyes and I go to a happy place in my mind, and somehow it seems to work for me.
There's no happy place with a needle in your body.
There is a happy place. When you forget about it, you hardly feel it. But anyway, that's where we wind up the newspaper review, and we'll take a short break, but we'll be right back.
Well, do stay with us. When we come back, it is time for the Dawn Debates.